This is an 8.5-minute video about the urban corridor concept and its effect on Olympia's east side neighborhoods. The Olympia Comprehensive Plan is due to be finalized in the next 2 months. The comprehensive plan is huge, but its intent can be boiled down to improving the health of Olympia downtown core, making transportation, housing, and lifestyles more energy efficient, and maintaining our quality of life. Here's part of the latest future land use map. Red on this map shows urban corridor and what's called urban development nodes. The diagonal hash marks show high-density overlay. 3 urban development nodes have been identified where residential density should be dramatically increased. Shown on this map at left is the downtown core node, and to the right, the Martin Way Pacific area node. Not shown is the west side node. It's also been recommended that Fort, State, and Harrison be designated as urban corridors. What does urban corridor mean? It means that along these streets, multi-use buildings up to 6 stories and with at least 25 living units per acre are allowed. It means that within a quarter mile of these streets, neighborhoods can have 3-story multi-use buildings with at least 15 units per acre. I'm going to show you a few of the hundreds of historic homes within a quarter mile of State and 4th Avenue, the future urban corridor. Meanwhile, let me summarize the uneasy feelings of City Council members regarding the urban corridor concept during their April 8th work session. Almost all council members seem to struggle with the proposed blanket application of a half-mile wide swath of medium to high-density development on surrounding neighborhoods. Julie Hankins reminded us that people's housing needs change over their lifetimes and that we shouldn't encourage the destruction of one kind of housing stock to create another. Cheryl Selby remarked that some parts of the proposed urban corridor were not likely to develop as planned due to its topography, ownership, or other constraints. Nathaniel Jones thought increasing density around natural urban nodes should be more the focus, rather than in the urban corridors themselves. Janine Rowe thought preserving historic properties should be a high priority. Instead of developing the whole corridor uniformly and ignoring current uses, perhaps only properties appropriate for redevelopment in the urban corridor could be considered. Stephen Buxbaum agreed that we don't want to degrade existing healthy neighborhoods with the high-density overlay and directed city staff to start identifying specific properties along the corridor that could reasonably be redeveloped. Why did I make this short movie? As I sat in the city council chambers during the April 8th meeting, I could hardly imagine what this proposed urban corridor along 4th and State Avenue would look like, even though I've been up and down these streets thousands of times over the last 37 years, and even though the city has visualization software which could make imagining it much easier. I thought it might be useful for everyone to actually see these streets that we want to turn into 3- to 6-story buildings. Neighborhoods along State and 4th were first populated by a few notable people, but mostly laborers and shopkeepers. Even today, these are working-class neighborhoods. About 40 years ago, after years of decline, people started moving back into these old houses and fixing them up. Why? Because they were affordable? Owners could increase their property values and standard of living through their own sweat equity? Residents could easily walk downtown, and they had great views from their homes and an open sky around them. Today, these neighborhoods are very healthy and full of people who care about their neighbors and community. They are not decaying ghettos. They are not in need of urban renewal. Can you charge more money for a property because it has a view, or because it's airy, pleasant, and full of light? Of course. Can a property lose value if it loses these qualities? Of course. If urban corridor zoning suddenly changes the rules so that developers can build up to 70-foot buildings along State and 4th, doesn't this take home equity dollars out of the pockets of current residents and put them into the developers' pockets? Yes. Will these buildings cast shade on houses to the north? Yes, creating a horizontal shadow almost 3 times their heights during the dark winter months. Will a blanket approach to urban corridor endanger historic houses throughout the working man's hill? Of course. Will this make downtown Olympia healthier? Not really. There are many areas in the downtown core that could use redevelopment to higher density. We've seen them all. Lots of asphalt, parking lots, empty, dilapidated buildings. We all know where they are. finish off this video, we're going to take a trip up 4th Avenue and then down State Avenue to look at the individual properties that line these streets. I hope you'll excuse the jiggling. I took these videos by duct taping my camera to my truck and driving around. As you view these properties, ask yourself the following questions. Which of these houses or buildings would I tear down or move and replace with 3 to 6 story buildings 10 feet from the sidewalk? The comprehensive plan sets a minimum average density of 7 living units per acre in Olympia. Many residential neighborhoods bordering the 4th and State Avenue have already a density of nearly 15 units per acre. Will overlaying them with an urban corridor development make them healthier? Some of the properties on these hills would be good candidates for high-density development. Which ones? Is the greenery, beauty, space, peace, and views what has actually attracted and retained residents on these hills? Would they still want to live here if qualities like this disappeared? Over 2/3 of the downtown core is asphalt. Maybe more people would choose to live downtown if, as part of every high-density development, there were pleasant views, greenery, and unpaved respites from asphalt. As you've been going up 4th Avenue, you might have realized that most of these houses are older houses that are well taken care of. Many of them have been converted to commercial use. There are some properties that might need redevelopment, but not a blanket approach. Okay, we're almost done. In a few seconds, we're going to go down State Avenue to see what those properties look like. And as we do, I'll ask the same questions again. There we go. Which of these houses or buildings would I tear down or move and replace with 3 to 6 story buildings 10 feet from the sidewalk? The comprehensive plan sets a minimum average density of 7 living units per acre in Olympia. Many residential neighborhoods bordering 4th and State already have an average density of nearly 15 units per acre. Will overlaying them with an urban corridor development make them healthier? Some of the properties on these hills would be candidates for high-density development. Which ones? Is the greenery, beauty, space, peace, and views what has actually attracted and retained residents on these hills? Would they still want to live here if these qualities disappeared? Over 2/3 of the downtown core is asphalt. Maybe more people would choose to live in downtown if, as part of every high-density development, there were pleasant views, greenery, and unpaved respites from asphalt. These views from the street are for everybody. Would you want them to disappear? Let's not destroy the successful part of Olympia, its surrounding residential areas, in an attempt to fix the downtown. The urban corridor model on 4th, State, and Harrison doesn't reflect naturally occurring development patterns and may actually destroy a way of life that attracts people to downtown neighborhoods. Redevelopment around nodes is more realistic and less damaging to existing residents and historic properties. Maybe making downtown Olympia more like its surrounding neighborhoods would attract more people than making the surrounding neighborhoods more like downtown Olympia. Thank you for putting up with my amateur video skills.